Thank you for listening to The Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day. Listen, I'm super excited to talk with Josh Barron, who is one of these super young lawyers throughout the country. He's in Utah, and really cool in that he speaks Spanish fluently, and he was a former prosecutor for a while, so he understood the criminal, but he did a lot of civil work too. So he's handled both sides, the civil and the criminal, but he's now heavily involved in criminal defense cases for people that need somebody to be on their side. So welcome, Josh.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, one of the things that I like to do in these podcasts is kind of get behind the scenes a little bit with the guests, because, there's the public persona of all the stuff you do in the courtrooms, in your office. But I like to know, how America cultivates individuals that are really successful like you. So first of all, tell me about your family. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California. I'm the oldest of 7. I think you came from a big family too. Didn't you have like 10 kids in your family? Is that right?
Got you beat, buddy. Yeah, I'm number 9 of 10. So, you're the oldest?
Oldest of 7. And then my wife and I have 11 kids. And we did that specifically so we'd have more than the Shannons.
Oh, that is absolutely awesome. My wife, we got married. She said, "Let's have kids," and I was in ignoramus. I was basically, I said, "Listen, I got to save money, whatever." And I look at my parents. I think my dad topped out about 18 grand a year, and he had 10 kids, and he was like, he's the richest man going. And here I was making decent coin as a lawyer. I mean, not more than my dad. Yeah. And so I should have just, listened to my wife. But so we have 6 kids.
Yeah.
And which is, I'm grateful, obviously. But that is awesome. So what age is your kids?
So our oldest are 19, and then the youngest is 2.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, my youngest is 11, and my oldest is 25. I see guitar great. In the background. Do they even play?
Yeah, they're kind of learning. They're kind of dinking around. Those are mine, but they have one that's a little starter guitar that we have that's in a case back there that they take out. And my daughter was playing it this morning.
Oh, that is so cool. So, were you guys childhood sweethearts and high school sweethearts, college? Where did you meet her?
We met. I was in law school. She was an undergrad. We met at BYU, and she was a teacher, a student teacher. She was an elementary education major, and so she had a year left of student teaching when she finished school. So that's why we ended up staying in Utah. I was planning to go back to California. And then when she finished teaching, so 9 of our kids are adopted through foster care. So she, when she finished her student teaching, she said, "I don't want to teach, I want to do foster care." So we started doing that and ended up having, I think, 30 kids placed with us over the years, and then adopted those 9 and had 2 biological as well.
Wow, that's a great story.
It's a big crew.
Yeah. And so through the foster care system in Utah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that. That's a great story. Tell me a little about that.
It's been awesome. My wife had to kind of drag me into it. You have to take these classes. I don't remember exactly how long. I think they were like 40 hours or something. And every time we went, I was like, never mind, let's not do this. And she kind of dragged me into it. But it's been incredible. It's really been fantastic. The kids we've met and the ones that we've been able to adopt have been just wonderful, obviously, and we love them to death. And I can't imagine my life not doing it that way. But it wasn't the original plan, but it's worked out fantastic.
Oh wow! So any of them going to be lawyers, you think?
Not if I can help it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. They're good enough at arguing, so we're probably training them up. But
that's right. Yeah, my wife's a lawyer, but she's hung out with our kids from the start. Once we had Emma, and I think it's been really great for that interaction, because I think that's where the primary teaching is in the home. And, because Yeah, so I think it's really cool that you guys are doing that. That's awesome. And then, so what part of Utah you live?
So we live in Lehigh, which is about 45 minutes south. It's between Provo and Salt Lake, so about 45 minutes south of Salt Lake. And
And then,
my office is downtown in Salt Lake, so I commute up there when I go to my office. But I usually go to court in the morning when we're not in a pandemic.
so tell me, you've been a civil lawyer for how many years?
Not long. So my first job, so my kind of plans had to change quickly because we got married during my third year of law school. So all of a sudden I was scrambling to find a job in an area that I wasn't really planning on. And I ended up taking a job in Park City doing real estate litigation. And I was there, so I graduated in, May, and I was there until like December. And I, like, from the day I sat down on my desk the first day, I knew it was the worst. It was a terrible fit. It wasn't the right place. It was not a good, it wasn't good. There was nothing good about it.
Mhm.
So I was almost immediately trying to figure out where else I could go. And I thought I would try to stay for a year, but even that wasn't going to be possible. So I ended up sending a resume to the prosecutor's office for Salt Lake City and got an interview. And I actually only sent one application and got one interview, and ended up working as a prosecutor for just over a year. And that's where I met my business partner, who we ended up starting our practice together.
So how long have you guys had your partnership?
So we started our criminal defense practice in 2009. Sharifi and Barron, so the two of us. And then he retired in 2017. He writes novels, and the novels were like have been really, really successful. So he made way more money from the novels than he ever did from practicing law. And so eventually his wife was like, "What are we doing?" And so they moved to St. George to be kind of closer to some family. And he's retired now. So his name is still on it, but he's not as involved.
How many lawyers in your office?
So we brought in an immigration attorney, and so it's just two now. At
Well,
one
that's
point we were up
great.
to like 6 or 7, but we're back down to 2.
Yeah, and do you feel like the criminal defense cases that you're handling, do you feel tell me the thought process that goes into becoming a criminal defense lawyer?
That's an interesting question, because like I never really thought I'd be a lawyer. Once I went to law school, like the farthest thing from my mind was to do anything in the criminal arena, much less defense. I always thought if I did anything criminal, it would be prosecution. But the first day, almost from the first day that I was a prosecutor, the other prosecutors called me a defense attorney, just based on my attitude and the offers I was making and how I approached my cases. So I really kind of, even during law school, thought criminal defense lawyers were kind of bad people. And then ended up doing it sort of by process of elimination. But it's really fit me and my kind of outlook way, way better than I ever would have thought.
And why is that?
So when I was doing prosecution, I really enjoyed the work. I liked trials a ton. I loved being in front of a jury. I loved, examining witnesses. I loved that kind of stuff. But I always identified with wanting to help this person who's sitting on the other side of the room and trying to solve the problems that led them to be there. So almost sometimes even like a little bit of social work. And I think it's good to have prosecutors who have that attitude. But my kind of allegiance was it just wasn't strong enough on the prosecution side of things. So, I mean, one of the tough things about being a prosecutor is that you don't have like a specific client. You have sort of an abstraction as a client. You represent the state of Utah. And so it was a lot easier for me to see how this person's life was being affected, the defendant's life was being affected by the case, than the community at large. And again, that's not to say anything negative about prosecutors. There's wonderful prosecutors who do great work. It just wasn't quite the right fit for me. And then once I was on the defense side, sitting next to that person who sometimes has made really terrible choices, but being able to be with them and help them and sympathize with them and help, it's been the right thing for me, 100%.
So it aligns with your personality that you want to be between the power of the state and your client.
Yeah. Yep. You said it better than I did. Yeah. That's 100% it. Yeah. That you just see, again, it's not to say that, my clients are always right and the government's always wrong, but I think personality is that I tend to think that that's where the error is going to be. And so I want to be there to stop that. I think that's right.
Interesting. So, how many jury trials have you done?
Man, I've lost count. So many. When we were at the prosecutor's office, we were doing at least one a month, sometimes 2 or 3 in a month. And then on the defense side, honestly, I'll have sometimes 6 months go by where I don't have a trial, and then I'll have like 3 trials in 2 weeks. So, I'd probably say I've done 30 or so jury trials, something like that. On the
And
defense side, more on the
yeah,
prosecution side.
tell me what you think. Tell me, do you trust the jury system?
I kind of do. I do, but I have kind of a story about why I may need to call that a little bit more into question. But I would say that most of the time, I think the juries, even when I've lost, have basically gotten it right. Like, I really understand why they did what they did. But Salt Lake City Justice Court is a pretty innovative justice court, and they're working with Harvard University on some implicit bias questionnaires. So the default, usually how we pick juries in Utah, is the judge will say, how many of you will be biased against the defendant because of his race? And of course, no, who wants to raise their hand to that?
Yeah, right.
And so a lot of times that kind of voir dire doesn't do anything to tell us anything about the jury. We just pick a jury pretty blindly, and it's not very helpful. Well, Salt Lake City did this questionnaire with Harvard that's like 37 questions long, and asked some really interesting questions about, like, what if the defendant doesn't testify? How will you feel about that on a scale of 1 to 5? So instead of just a yes or no, where we all know which one you should check, it's saying on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you feel about this? So I recently did a trial there where we had a lot of jurors say, I would really hold it against the defendant if he didn't testify. So we thought maybe they didn't understand the question or something. We started bringing them back individually. And we told them, well, the judge is going to tell you that you can't hold that against them. Will you be able to? And about half of the individuals that we brought back said, well, if he doesn't testify, I'm going to think he's guilty. So it's interesting, like, when we kind of look under the hood, that, we get a little bit it's a little bit scary when we look at it that way. But still, at the end of the day, I think it's better than almost any alternative that I can think of. So there's little tweaks I think we could make to it. But overall, I have a lot of faith in the jury system.
Yeah, so my firm tries a lot of cases, and one of the things that I'm a big fan of is questionnaires. And so a number of the judges in Cook County, where I'm at, will allow for a pretty extensive questionnaire, so that folks can see what type of questions and answers these folks have, because you want to have a fair trial among your peers. You don't want to have one that's going to be a predetermined type thing, and even more so when you're talking about somebody's liberty. So tell me about the voir dire process. Do you have pretty wide scope for voir dire as a criminal defense attorney?
No, it's kind of frustrating. So in the last, since 2009, so in the last 11 years, I've had like 2 trials where the attorneys conducted voir dire, and all the other ones have been conducted by the judges.
That is just, I got to stop you right there, buddy. The number one thing that you must work on is you've got to do the voir dire.
They just don't let us. Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to change it, but that's one thing that's work.
Okay.
That's the one of the things about being a trial lawyer is okay. So it's a thankless job sometimes. I always tell people that if they think they're going to make a ton of money being a trial lawyer, go into accounting, go into start your own business, go into commercial, all that stuff. This isn't about that. This is about some pretty very, there's a lot of ambiguity in what we do. I mean, sometimes there's a thin line between winning and losing. The facts do matter. And one of the things that I found from voir dire is that I think the defendant in a criminal case is entitled to hear specific questions from their own lawyer as to how they feel about things. I mean, that's just a basic right. I think it's almost constitutional in my book. And so I guess, if you need help out there, I'm willing to come out and testify. I just think it's it's not fair if you're going to put somebody away for life or worse. Give them the widest leeway possible for a hotshot lawyer like Josh to find out who these people actually are.
And it's funny because when I've done the the attorney conducted voir dire, what's been interesting is I feel like some prosecutors lose their case in voir dire because of how they treat the jury. to me, a big thing is you've got to connect with them. And
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of prosecutors be really condescending to juries and really do their client, the state, no favors in terms of their ability to have credibility with the jury. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I would love to do more. I find the way we do jury selection is so boring that I almost like want to fast forward through it. There's nobody's learning anything. It's just pro forma, and it takes forever, and we're just not getting anywhere. The good part though in Utah is that because we do so little on the front end, when we have a juror that we have questions about, if we have any legitimate reason to talk to the juror, a lot of times the judge will bring back that individual juror. And then we can do a little bit more where I'm asking the questions, we're seeing how they respond. And that's super interesting when we can do that.
Yeah. Does it vary by county? What kind of voir dire you can do?
Yep. So the two juries that I did where the judge allowed, one was in a district that sometimes allows it. The other was just one kind of independent-minded justice court judge who honestly was wrong on tons of issues, but I really appreciated him allowing us to do that. And I think a lot of judges are worried that we're going to take, way longer to do it, or that we're going to go all over the place. We're going to try our case in advance. But, when we've done it, it hasn't taken any longer. And so I'm not totally sure what the real justification is, but yeah, I wish there was more attorney conducted voir dire for sure in Utah.
I mean, length, we're talking about man or woman's life going to a government paid